Welcome back to the 2019 Star Trek Convention. I am here with Fred and Rocky, and we are talking about the latest panel, the Discovery panel. And in this panel, which is going to come up here in 1 second, we have Julianne Grossman, Clint Howard, Harry Judge, I'm going to mess up Judge, and Rekha Sharma. Okay, just wanted to double check that.
Yeah, you got that.
Yes, I've been butchering names all day. I finally got something. Woo! Okay,
Kapla.
so So join us, let us watch the panel together, and then join us at the very end where we talk about it and tell you our commentary. See you soon, you guys. Enjoy the panel.
But also the
CBS likes it.
The people that work on the show. You know, it's like we're appreciated, and the writers and the creative people, and the fact that you guys come here in solidarity and in mass. It's
Give yourselves a hand.
Yeah, really. See, they badmouth themselves just like we do.
Just like we do.
Well, Clint, this leads right into that. For each of you, especially you, how amazing has your Star Trek experience been, being a part of the franchise? I mean, you're with this for 50 years now.
More.
And I know, 50 plus.
It's grown. At first, I didn't really realize. I didn't appreciate. I didn't understand. When I worked on the show as a kid, then I got on this TV series called Gentle Ben. Star Trek was one of a lot of jobs. Over time, I realized that it's not just another job. It was different. And I was lucky because I was there at the beginning. Now, my memories of working on the first Star Trek are thin. The one thing I do remember is they brought me to the set, and I was nervous, and I was anticipating. I had a lot of dialogue and everything, but I got to the set, and I got kind of comfortable, and then I heard the two tones, the two bells, which meant they had cut filming, and they were moving over to the new stage, because it was a set change. And I saw the cast and crew coming out of the shadows to come to me to work on this scene. And it gave me so much confidence. And it was fun. That's one thing about my dad. My dad always made the business fun. And it was fun to work on it, except the pink grapefruit juice was hideous. And I don't believe I've had grapefruit juice since.
Good reason.
And the other thing, the other runs of the show, first of all, Deep Space Nine, they were not hiring people that had been on Star Trek. And it was an oversight that I got hired. And once they hired me, it's okay, and then Enterprise came along, and I worked with Scott Bakula, and they were embracing people coming back and working on the show. And then Discovery was special. Akiva Goldsman, who was a good friend of mine, he thought of me and called, and I sure I'll do it. I was on the William Shatner Rose, for crying out loud. I played Baylock as a 40-year-old man.
Back in the costume.
So it has been. By far, it's been unique. It's one thing to be the kid with the bear, but to have been associated with Star Trek is something that I'll carry with me, as long as I can.
That's right. And how about the three of you, the newcomers?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
This is all so overwhelming for me. This is my first convention. And, God, I feel like, anyway, people are saying, welcome to the family. And it's, it's so cool, and thank you. And it's so touching. I've been doing voiceover work, and only voiceover work, thank you, for 27 years, which is odd because I'm only 21. I started speaking in utero. When you get to be of a certain age, you make these kinds of jokes. But in any case, until I booked the voice of Discovery, the rest of my 27-year career didn't matter. You know what I mean? And now it matters. And it's like this one job that sort of is transformative, you know, like you say, it's really special, and it's special because of the fans and because of the following, and also because my father was a big Star Trek fan, and so that makes me feel good. But I'm just honored, and it's been amazing to say Black Alert. For some of you, and just thanks for the warmth. Live long and prosper.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been in the building, I've been in the city less than 4 hours, in the building less than 1, so I too am feeling a little like, woohoo! It's been an amazing start. Also, I didn't know how much I wanted a bigger family until I suddenly got one. So thank you for this amazing welcome. It just took minutes before people were extending that to me, and it feels so genuine that I feel, I think one of the things when we have these great experiences with particular projects is there can be reasons why we want to do that project again, because we love the character, we love the people that we work with, or we love just working. But to actually feel like something that you're doing there is part of a larger thing, that you're contributing to something larger, I really felt that after doing the short. It's like, I felt so satisfied that I contributed to the larger Star Trek experience in Canada.
Yes.
And having grown up watching the show as well, that's really significant and important to me too. So I actually come from Alberta, and Rekha, I believe, went to a convention in Vulcan.
I sure did.
So Vulcan, I lived, I grew up closer to Vulcan than any of you guys, probably. And this is people from Alberta, yeah. But I'll pass it along to you now. How was that experience for you?
It was great to, first of all, discover, I'm Canadian as well, from Vancouver. And, Canadians! You made it down here. So to discover there was a place called Vulcan in my own country was amazing. And of course, there's a starship in the middle of the city. And a Klingon.
Who's been there?
I was just going to say, I've never been to Vancouver, so can I stay at your place when I go visit?
Family.
Okay, awesome.
I'm like, oh, did I just invite everybody? You're all invited. My mom won't mind. Yeah. Being part of this family, I am a somewhat newcomer. This is my second time here at STLV, and I'm thrilled to see all of you again. So happy to be here. I was already part of a sci-fi family from doing Battlestar Galactica. Beyond my wildest dreams, then to be part of yet another family, and one that I grew up watching TOS reruns, eating cookies and milk after school, and watching this crazy old show that moved me beyond anything I would have expected at 8 years old. To be a part of that, I mean, we're all talking about that. It's such a huge legacy. The stories are generational, multi-generational. And there's not many shows that do that. And the warmth and the thrust of what the show is about draws people like you guys, all of us together in a way that I have never experienced. And I was on some cool shit, so I know what I'm talking about.
Rekha, how different or similar are the BSG and Trek fans?
Pardon?
The fan bases, from your experience of being the fans from both shows. Is there a lot of overlap, or are they completely different fan bases?
There's some overlap for sure, but I would say they have such a different vibe too. And specifically, I feel like Star Trek fans in general, okay, I'm an idealist, I'm an Aquarian, and I feel like most of us have a real desire to have a world that's just a much more beautiful place than we live in right now. And that is a very unique thing to the Star Trek fans. I will say, Star Trek fans are the sweetest people in the world.
There you go.
You're here.
Julianne, I'm going to go to you for a second. You're the voice of the computers on Discovery and Enterprise. How does one land such a job? I mean, obviously you've done this as a career.
You canoodle with the right people. No. You know, someone else asked me that today, and it's such an unglamorous answer, but I'll tell you the truth.
That's what I want.
Okay, I auditioned to be the voice of Discovery in my pajamas in my house, in my booth. I mean,
That's why everyone wants.
That's why you got it. Everybody else got overdressed.
yeah, right. I've never done on camera. All my work has been voiceover.
You sure you have pajamas on?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. No, I had my sweatpants on and my, Lululemon, whatever, and yeah. But, a lot of voiceover, it's changed, as many of you probably know, in the last 10 years or so. It used to be that we would go out to an audition to a casting director, especially in New York. You'd go out and you're nodding, and you'd read for the casting director. And it was, you'd have to get dressed, do your hair, to put a little something on. I don't know if you did your hair, but
Back in the day.
Or you would go to your agent's office and you would read in their booth, and it's gotten more and more and more isolated in the last couple of years. You're nodding, yeah. And so most of the stuff that we do is from our homes now. So I auditioned at home. When I got called in to the first session, I had no idea, because it was all so confidential. So I had no idea what this was. I just knew, that I was a computer voice. That's all I knew. And so, when I got there and saw Saniqua, I was like, what? So yeah, I mean, I just auditioned from home. That's it.
That's wild. So you literally didn't know what you were going to.
I had no idea. No idea. And then I didn't even know, after the session, I didn't even know if I'd booked the job, because they were saying, well, we're not sure, or something. I don't know.
So your agent didn't know either?
My agent didn't know either, because the casting company, not Warner Brothers, not CBS, not Paramount, the casting company, who will remain nameless, was very cagey, I think, about, giving up the confidentiality. So I didn't know that I'd booked the job until like the third episode. I thought, for God's sake, I must be the voice now, So yeah, and here we are, going into season 3.
And then just to follow up, Julianne, how far in advance, and sometimes how close to an episode airing, do you go in and do your thing?
I have no idea. I come in at post. So as soon as everything is shot and done, I come in on the back end and I record to picture. So do you guys know what I mean by that? No? Tell us more. Okay. So I'm seeing the actual episode having been shot, filmed, not aired yet, and I'll watch a few seconds before where my line is going to be. I have a little speaker, handheld, that I hold to my ear. You guys know this drill. And it's called ADR. Does anyone know what that means? That's right. Additional dialogue recording. That's right.
Okay.
Alternative dimension reality. No. So I hear in my little speaker, beep, 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 and then I speak where the fourth beat would be. And my lines are scrolling below the screen. You're familiar. And I, say my lines within the space parameter that is required.
Do you ever get any direction?
I did in episode 1. I'm sorry, season 1, a couple episodes. In season 2, no. we do, what I do, this is kind of interesting, and I'll make this brief, because, but I do it two ways. So let's say my line is, I don't know, what's my line? Anybody have a line? I heard proximity alert. Okay, that's good. So I do it two ways. One is highly automated, so proximity alert, proximity alert. So it's very automated. And the other one I do is a little bit more ethereal. So proximity alert, proximity alert. So in terms of direction, sometimes I'll get directed to sound more automated, and sometimes I'll get directed to sound more ethereal.
Interesting. And then Harry, take us through, since you're meeting us for the first time, your audition process. How do you land that kind of a role?
That's a great question. So I knew it was for Star Trek. I knew it was for an alien, but I didn't realize it was for a pre-existing, pre-established alien race. And I'm super glad I didn't know, because I don't know how that would have informed what I did, what I did in the room. Like I don't know how I would, if I would have taken some pre-existing performance cues, which really wouldn't have helped me. I would have, having that vision or those ideas of that appearance also would have helped me. What I did do though is, knowing that it was going to be under prosthetic, and that was clear because of the casting request, it was like, please send people with smaller heads, because they're going to throw a lot on top of it. So there was a height request, smaller heads,
But big brains,
yeah,
right?
oh yeah, totally. So I checked those boxes, and in prepping the scene, which was a scene between myself and Andorian, the actual audition scene, and we were in a space battle between us and like Klingons. And so we were in a ship, and the Andorian and I were co-piloting and talking about shooting the Klingons and where like headings, and you're kind of, and then we're also doing this, making the most of the Tellarite-Andorian relationship and doing a little bit of like jabs to each other. So having done some mask work and knowing that in prosthetic, what we normally do with camera work, which is essentially letting people into us and letting people read the stuff that happens in our eyes and almost underneath our face, that's not going to carry through a prosthetic. So I very much carefully scored, and by scored I mean like carved out, crafted the scene so as to just give a little hint of how I would physically storytell some of those moments in a way that would be bigger than just my eyes looking. And it was subtle, but it was defined. Like I really made it crisp so that on a certain line I would just take it out a little bit more. Not make it theatrical, but defined and precise movement. So that, and I said that for the whole audition. I think it was that, plus because I grew up on Star Trek, I knew the tone. I heard a story of a friend of mine who went audition for the same part, and he went, he was loud, he was a kid, kind of went way over the top with it, and it was very big and theatrical, which was almost, when I heard the story, I thought maybe it was more of a Star Wars feel or something. He was a younger guy, he was probably 10, 15 years younger than me, and I think he just didn't have as much Star Trek grounding in him in terms of the tone of the show.
But he had a small head.
Small enough, but not small, not small enough. I don't know.
Not small enough.
Yeah, no, the brains were too big for his head. So I think it was a combination of giving the sense that I could work with the prosthetic, at least that was my intent, and then also living in what felt to me like Star Trek tone. I did the audition once, one take, no direction. There were some rumblings of possible callbacks, 2 straight days. It's like, we'd like to bring you in. Are you available tomorrow? Yep. Never mind, it's canceled. How about the next day? Are you available the next day? Yep. No, didn't hear anything back. And that was it. I was cast.
Wow. So you seem to become the go-to Tellarite.
Yeah.
Sure. How did that happen? And
Sure.
obviously You didn't mind it.
There were Andorians and Tellarites cast, 2 Andorians, 2 Tellarites, a female and male of each. And so I showed up on set with a female, taller, much taller than me, thinner body, and we were kind of looking at each other and we were going for our life cast. But we didn't really know exactly what the story was. We didn't know exactly where we were in terms of if we were fully booked, if we were fully cast. You couldn't tell if we were still being auditioned, if how we did was with the prosthetic was part of the test. So we were just sort of trading notes on it, and we kind of came to the conclusion that, well, we were the lucky winners of the casting of the male and female Andorian and Tellarite. And the only reason I knew that the female was being cast is because she told me. She's like, yeah, we had a whole session for the same scene. So it's like, oh, I guess I got the Tellarite role and you got the female. But while we were going through the studio, I overheard one of the prosthetics people say something like, we've got 2 more coming in a couple hours. And I was getting a little anxious, and I was like, okay. And so I was a little nervous to tell my new friend, Kieran, about this news, because I'm like, I don't want to, we were celebrating. We were so joyful that we'd got cast in this thing that we both loved. So the prospect of casting some doubt on our futures was, I didn't really want to do that. So anyway, I go through the process, and as it turns out, we come out of our life cast, we come into another room, and sure enough, there's a small girl and a slightly taller guy, the other Andorian and Tellarite who had been cast. Long story short, the female Tellarite and female Andorian never got to set. They used myself and the male Andorian, and even though they fully body casted the female versions of each, they never ended up getting used on screen. So it is an unfortunate thing about this work that we do sometimes, is it can go that far, and then because of creative choices that are made, it can go certain ways. So yeah, I can't remember how we got to that story, but yes, that's how I became the Tellarite.
There you go. Now, Rekha, I think everybody here will agree with you. You absolutely killed it as Landry. She was great. I couldn't decide if I loved her or hated her. And I'm wondering, what do you think made this woman tick?
What do I think made her tick?
What does she want?
Well, have you played the game yet?
No.
Oh, you gotta play the game. How many people up here have done the Star Trek Online Rise of Discovery storyline for Landry? Yeah, some peeps? So you guys know what made her tick. I don't want to spoil anything for you.
As you played her, what made you?
Okay, we'll go back to that. I mean, a lot of what made her tick was the relationship with Lorca, which was alluded to very subtly. But you probably remember the moment where I was like, I'll do anything for you, or something was the line. Yeah, hello. Indeed. So Lorca was using his power in a very #MeToo kind of way. And that was the unfortunate series of events that Landry was dealing with that made her make poor choices. And then I also feel like it was important, and we're talking about Prime Landry, it was important for somebody to carry a very strong voice against the woman who started the Battle of Binary Stars. It's a bit of a problem, right?
This is very cryptic. I'm trying to decode.
Although the audience understands that Sinequa is a good person, she lives in a universe where she's gone to jail because she is single-handedly responsible for the death of like pretty much everybody we all loved, and the fact that we're fighting Klingons now. That's her fault. So it's a tricky thing. It's like, we need that in the story. We need the person to be like, you are a bad person. And then by virtue of that, nobody likes me.
We like you.
Thanks, yeah, me.
And then Ripper killed you.
And then Ripper killed me.
How satisfied were you with your demise?
Terribly unsatisfied, hated it, cried in my hotel room when I read it in the script. I'd just be like, I'm on Star Trek, which is like one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, and come to work to discover that I'm working with the most beautiful people, have no desire to leave, and nobody tells me. They just hand me a script, and I read it. It was the longest weekend of my life. But the good news is, I'm still part of the family, and they brought me back to be a mirror landry anyway.
There you go. And then how different an experience was doing entry for Star Trek Online?
How different was it?
How different an experience to do it as a voice?
Voice acting.
There you go.
Amazing. So fun. Love not having to memorize anything.
Oh, I never even thought of that. Yeah.
Right? I could just read it off the page. I loved doing the video game. Everybody over there made an amazing. God, the visuals are incredible. All the animation and the storyline they gave me was beautiful and poignant. And as any actor will say, it's all in the script. And if you've got something to sink your teeth into, you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah. Clint, fans at home literally cheered out loud and screamed, "Holy shit," when you popped up on Discovery. What kind of calls, texts, emails did you get right after your appearance?
I didn't get any. I know.
You don't have their number?
Well, it was, Akiva he called me and said they had a thing, a funny kind of there was a Tranya joke that was wrapped up in that scene that ended up not playing. I think it was the tone of the show. They wanted to go one direction, and my character offers up Tranya, and it got a laugh on the set, and it worked, but it threw the drama a little bit out of whack, so I understood why they lost it. My friends don't really do the, pay-per-view kind of thing yet, and I mean, we're old dinosaurs. And I actually I don't think my agent saw it. In fact, I know my agent didn't see it. I can guarantee my agent didn't see it. No, I didn't have, what I get is after the fact, over the course of time, the fact that I've been in 4 different versions of Star Trek, it's a connection people make. And I hear that they're, the kind of, oh, there he is! No, they don't do that in front of me. And I appreciate that, but it's the fact that for most people, all their lives, they've known me as a guy that's been on Star Trek. So having kind of sort of lucked into being in, a couple of them. But again, the Deep Space Nine was an accident. They didn't want me. And yet, they fumbled, and they didn't, when they cast me, they didn't realize I had been in the first one. So, technically, I shouldn't have been in Deep Space Nine. And in fact, the episode I worked was one of the ruggedest days I've ever faced. Jonathan Frakes was directing. And I had a call for 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I didn't work till 2 o'clock in the morning. And, it's television. As much as you can say it's arty and you're trying to do good and you're trying to do multi-layers, it's 8 pages a day, we gotta go. And that day, Jonathan was behind, and he actually apologized to me because, it was, I got tired and I hadn't even worked. The crew was just a bunch of zombies. And yet, that brief appearance sort of adds up to a collection of uniqueness. Not that I'm going to throw my shoulder out, patting myself on the back, but I feel good, the fact that I've been able to participate. But one thing I'll take exception to is just for me as an actor, I can't treat with reverence what the project I'm working on. I can't think of it as anything other than My job as an actor is to make this character come alive in an honest way, the way the producers want. But if I hold something in reverence, that's what it's gonna look like. And I'll get caught, in my mind, I'll get caught. So I try to keep everything kind of on the even keel. I know there is a special reverence to this franchise. I realize that. But as I go to work on it, no, I put on my acting face, and it's just another job. And I don't mean another job like a throwaway job, but I try to give the same kind of focus and the same Clint as on anything as this. So it's the fact that it's a revered show. If I let that affect me, that's going to change my acting. And my dad taught me to act in about 10 minutes. It was a lifetime, but it was know where your character has been, know where your character wants to go, and really listen to the other characters. And simply enough, I can get complicated, and if I go back to those simple rules of figuring out where I was. I mean, when I was little, was I at school, and now I'm going home and I want ice cream? Or, something that simple. Because everybody in life has a motive. Everybody in life has intention. And if you can kind of get that in your mind, it just helps carry you. And also the listening is really important. Because if you're a good listener, it's going to come out. It's going to show. And that's one thing that I'm really happy that my dad sort of inculcated in me, was not just learning the lines, but listening. And it's funny, when you listen, it makes learning the lines easier. So, anyway, that's all.
Thank you. Hey, Julianne, I am wondering, you're meeting a lot of the fans, obviously, for the very first time.
Yeah.
How many of the Discovery cast will you be meeting for the very first
I
time?
have not met one member of the Discovery.
You just have.
Well, yes, I just have. But he's like, hello. No, it's an honor to meet you. That's for sure. I told you that.
Well, you mentioned Sinequa before, so I'm suddenly wondering, maybe
yes,
you have
no,
met some.
I haven't met any of them, and
That was on the screen.
Oh, okay.
yeah, and I'm really excited to meet them, but I want to share with you a really quick story because Clint mentioned about his agent and that his agent has probably never seen the show. So I recently celebrated my 50th birthday. Thank you. And I invited one of my agents to my party. She's one of the owners of my primary agency. And we were all talking, and she was like, so this Star Trek thing's doing really well for you, right? I was like, yeah, have you seen any of it? She said, no. And I leaned into her ear, and I said, black alert. And she goes, oh my God, that's so good! This is my husband right here. Am I right? Did that happen? Totally. And it's just so funny. I mean, your agents take 10%, they never see anything you do. They never hear anything you do. I don't know, I just wanted to throw that story out. But no, I haven't met any of them. So if any of you want to introduce me to any of the others, please do. I cannot wait to meet them.
Very cool. Let me open this up to the fans who may have some questions.
Hi. This is for Rekha. So I did not get a chance yet to play Star Trek Online myself, mainly because I like the hardware too. But and I don't want to spoil everything for the. I read up on it, and as it turns out, Landry had a female partner in that, as far as I know. And so I've heard you speak about seeing people of color on screen when you were little, specifically Shell Nichols as Uhura. And as somebody who's bisexual, it just means so much to me to have that kind of representation, and I'm so glad it was you, and I just wanted to ask how it was for you to find that out about Landry after the fact. And yeah, to stop me from crying, I also want to add, and you're bisexual, your character's bisexual, and you get to be with Lorca, so like, kudos to you.
Wait till you see Patel, she's hot. Yeah, absolutely honored to add to the mix, you know, that wasn't part of what was originally my character, and to, you know, it's been wonderful to do the game in that way and learn more about who she is, and yeah, thank you for sharing that with me. That means so much.
I come see you later.
Okay.
Thank you. Nobody on that side, right? I can't see them there. Nope. Go ahead.
Hello. Oh, hi. Julianne, I have a question for you.
Who does my hair? No, that's not the question. God, that got such a weak laugh. I gotta work on it. That joke doesn't work. Okay, go ahead.
I took television production in my high school for 3.5 years and also in college for a year, so I somewhat understand that business. And voice acting, I can understand that, you know, it's somewhat different because I've trained in past to like be on camera and stuff, and I'm fascinated with people who do voice acting for whether it's shows or for documentaries. I'm a history documentary fanatic. So my question is, when you did get the role for Discovery to play the voice of a computer, what was your initial reaction to it? But then mentally, you got to prepare for this. You know, how do you prepare to play such a role, so to speak?
Wow. Thank you for asking me that question. How did I feel when I got the role? When I knew that I had the role, right, Harry, I was ecstatic. I had no idea how much it would change the trajectory of my career and my life, as it has. Gosh, I'm going to disappoint you. In terms of preparing for the role, I pay homage to my fellow actors up here because they prepare for their roles. And although in the past I have prepared for a lot of other animated characters that I've played, because Discovery is a computer, and because that style of speaking comes naturally to me, I don't do much preparation. Is that terrible?
No.
Is that terrible? I mean,
You got it.
Yeah, naturally gifted. It's
what you do.
You know, I work the best when I cold read. When I never see the script, I think I'm different than, I want to discover it, pardon the pun, and let the magic of the discovery happen in the moment. So I actually, for this role, don't want to be as prepared, if that makes sense, because I can't have an emotional response to the ship computer.
Right. That does make sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you're playing the computer. You're not allowed to have emotion unless the writers say you can.
That's right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Can I just before you just pop back to the Serena's question? One thing I just wanted to acknowledge was the fact that the writers decided to do and 2 Indian women in this bisexual relationship, or I mean, whatever. It's not the relationship. Anyway, in this relationship, just because I feel like it's hard enough to be, you know, something other than straight in the world today, and there's added bonuses when you come from some really old-fashioned backwards cultures, for me personally, I actually know 2 Indian women who are a couple who are well into their 50s, approaching 60, and they are not out. And they would absolutely be ostracized from their families. They live together as friends. It's like crazy.
That's a shame. Too.
It's a total shame, and so it really felt an extra good feeling to play two Indian women who were in love. Just wanted to add. You want to get together later, girlfriend?
Bring it!
Yeah.
Go ahead. Hi. So I have two things for Julianne, actually. One, I was going to ask you, so we all know Majel Barrett is the voice of the original Enterprise.
Yes, Majel.
There were some episodes where she got to do some not-so-computer-esque voiceovers. So there was like a Q episode where she got to have the computer talk to him and say, "Get it yourself," when they were asking for something from the replicator. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about that as far as your character and what kind of fun things you might want to be able to say in the future.
Bad words.
Well, anything.
The first thing that comes to mind, and I wonder if any of you can, what's your name?
Josh.
Hi, Josh. There's an episode called Calypso, right? The short, right?
Shorts, yeah.
Right? Where there's a voice of her, of her costume, her suit, right? Okay. So people have asked me, is that you? And I think I recorded it. But the producers were telling me, not the producers, but my the sound direction guys were telling me they weren't sure if it was going to end up being me or if it was going to be somebody else, because it wouldn't make sense for the voice of Discovery to be the voice of the suit. So does anybody know if it's me?
I don't think it is.
You don't think it is?
Different.
It sounds different?
And I think there's a different voice credited at the end.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I want to do that. I would love to answer your question. I would love to be able to do some walla, some looping, some other kinds of voices like background in the show. I think it would be really fun to do that and to be able to throw something in. Oh my gosh, there's a whole band behind.
Yeah. So we got time for one question.
Okay.
Do you want to squeeze
I
in?
hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I just had one other thing. So I saw the club you put with Olivia before you came to the convention.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, Mary Shifo's going to be here later this week. She's really good at Klingon. So if you want some tips, you should go talk to her.
Great, right on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Last question.
Hi, my question is also for Julianne.
Harry, you don't want to ask Harry something? Okay, go ahead, please.
You did voices of a few characters for the DC superhero cartoons.
That's
the name
true.
of the characters?
For DC?
Yeah.
Okay. I did Hippolyta, Queen Hippolyta. Does anyone know who that is?
Yes.
It's Wonder Woman's great-grandmother.
No, just her mother. I've played Queen Hippolyta for several projects, but my favorite DC character is Big Barda! Yes! She, in Batman, that's DC, right? Am I right? Yes, that's DC. Yes, Big Barda in Batman, Superman versus Batman Apocalypse feature film. And a couple of other roles on Justice League and Zeta Project and stuff like that.
Great, thank you.
Nice, thank you.
Everybody, that's all the time we have. Let's give it up for Rekha Sharma, Gary Judge, Julianne Grossman, and Clint Howard. Thank you.
So welcome back. That was a fantastic panel. What did you guys think of that? Did you guys like that panel?
All I have to say is hearing Black Alert in person was the coolest thing.
I loved hearing her
Yeah.
voice. She
Yes.
sounded exactly like a computer, you know?
Yeah, that was my favorite surprise of the day so far.
was,
I
yeah.
really enjoyed listening to her talk.
I have to agree with that. I mean, because she also did two different variations on it.
I really like that too. You
which-
have the robotic one, and then what did she call it? The
Ethereal.
Ethereal one.
Ethereal,
Yeah.
ethereal version, yes.
That was cool. Now, have you guys ever played the video game Portal?
No,
I've heard it. I've not played it.
Oh my God, when she was doing that, I was totally reminded of Gladys, which is one of the major characters in that video game. And I'm like, oh, she could do Gladys. Gladys is awesome, by the way. Whoever is the voice actress for that just did a phenomenal job, but that's what I was thinking of when she was saying
From
that.
what I understand, you're not supposed to make Gladys your GPS voice.
No, make Gladys your GPS voice.
Because you'll get lost totally.
Yes, totally.
That's awesome.
We need a GPS like that. We totally need a GPS like that.
GPS with attitude. Huh?
Yeah, totally. Now, one of the things that I learned from this panel is when you are doing an audition, don't overreact. That is one of the major, major things. And they were talking about slight movements, slight, just really, you want to be able to act underneath all of the prosthetics and everything that they have on you. And I think that would be really hard to do.
Yeah. So do they do the auditions with all the prosthetics on, or they're just kind of...
No.
Not usually.
Yeah,
No.
Okay.
they have no prosthetics on when they do the
Okay,
audition.
so, yeah, I mean, you're trying to imagine what an audition's like for an actor to come in and just go for it, give it all there, and then you're like 9 steps over the top, and you have no idea.
Exactly.
And then the guy who grew up watching Star Trek understands there's some subtlety sometimes, and I totally get that. That was one of the great points made in that.
Yeah.
How do you win an audition? Although they never knew it, which is the other thing I found fascinating. A lot of these Discovery actors don't know they're in the show until they're in the show. I mean, it's kind of strange, up to the point where they actually came on the set in full makeup and somebody didn't make the cut. And they sent them away because they just needed the one. They didn't need 2 of them.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, that's show business right there.
Yeah, and show business is harsh. I mean,
Cutthroat.
Oh,
Yeah.
total cutthroat.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is, like a lot of times you'll have 2 or more really good actors or actresses, and it comes down to real subtle things where, the producers will decide, okay, this person just fits a little bit better into the character we're looking for. And it's, like you said, it can be cutthroat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they make it to the show, you better enjoy it because there's a lot of people that didn't.
Yeah, totally. And then I really liked that one comment too where he was talking about being an old dinosaur, He was talking about pay-per-view and being an old dinosaur. And I'm like, do they even have pay-per-view anymore? It's all like streaming.
Pay-per-view. I remember when pay-per-view was new.
Right.
I was a teenager, but I remember it.
They don't have pay-per-view anymore, do they?
That's called video on demand now.
Yeah, now it's video on demand.
Yeah, which just means you just click on it and it's a website and plays it to you. That's about it.
Or it's like Netflix,
Or
right?
Netflix,
Yeah.
or CBS All Access, something I've heard of. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe cable systems still have pay-per-view, like where you can buy
maybe.
like a special sporting event, one time.
Yeah, at some point
But,
in the
yeah.
industry, they stopped calling it pay-per-view and started calling it video on demand. Because that's just a thing they did.
Well, I think that's more of the, for online streaming.
It's still, cable access, same thing too.
Cable, yeah.
They call it that.
But pay-per-view would basically be the same thing. Like
Yeah.
you would watch the movie when you wanted to watch the movie,
Yeah,
right?
well, but nowadays
Yeah.
pay-per-view, you kind of almost think about like a boxing match instead of a movie. I think.
True, yeah.
Because
it's
you want to
more
watch it.
sporting
Yeah,
events,
we want to pay for
Like
watching that
MMA.
thing. Yeah. We want the wrestling. We want we need violence in our household right now.
And then you see that too in a lot of casinos, because a lot of casinos here in Las Vegas, they have big sporting events. So if an MMA match is going on, a casino will have a party and they'll have it on every single TV. And they have to pay for that. They have to pay some good money to do that too.
Yep.
Off subject, but
That's Vegas.
right, that's Vegas. And so that one actor, what was his name? He was the one who was in the multiple Star Treks.
Oh, Clint Howard.
Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, I don't think they would have hired me if they realized that I was in the other.
I think that's hilarious.
That's so
is
funny.
He is a legendary actor, though. So to put him in one of your things is it's kind of why aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah,
He's a guy that should be working nonstop all the time.
Yeah.
He's that good.
Yeah. But it's interesting, though, how that philosophy changed over time. I mean, we're drifting a little bit off topic, but like in particular, Voyager comes to mind. I mean, there were 2 actors that actually had little bit parts in The Next Generation.
Oh, yeah.
And then they were, hired as...
You see, if you sit there and watch Deep Space Nine on its own, actors are inside and out of these shows in completely different outfits and characters.
Yeah.
It's like that guy that played Wayun is like,
Jeffrey Combs.
yeah, that guy's all over the place.
Yeah.
Every show, every season, everything, he's all over.
Yes.
He's such a good actor, though. You can't tell that he's like Wayun one character, or
Yeah.
1 second, and then another character, another.
Yeah,
second.
and they're that good. You have no idea. Unless you sit there and you're watching it that closely, it goes right by you, and it's like, man, these actors are really great.
Yeah.
It's the same guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, Star Trek will bring in amazing actors from all kinds of things, and that's one thing I want to see with Discovery is more guest actors coming into the show.
Sure.
I mean, we want to see more of just the regular bridge crew, but because we love all those guys, they're great. It's like they're on the show and they're just sitting there hitting a button once in a while. I want to see an away mission or two.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I feel like with Discovery, we don't get those extra episodes like the away missions where
And-
they focus on the
Yeah,
backstory.
and the other thing I want to see is I don't want to see the person who gets the story of their life in the show, their whole episode, and then get killed off. I hate that. I was so heartbroken to lose Ariam.
Yes.
But that's the kind of off topic we're talking about today's panel. So, but yeah, I mean, come on. Speaking of people who are killed off too early, Landry.
Yeah.
Let's talk about her.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I was really surprised when they got rid of her.
Me too.
And they brought her back for the alternate part, but
She died
she
again.
died again.
Yep.
Yeah, she could have been on the show all the time as far as I'm concerned.
I
Yeah.
do remember hearing an interesting story about Commander Landry that when the script came out where she was going to be killed off, the producers were telling her, it's nothing personal.
Nothing against you.
It was just the story called for the character to.
Maybe they should have had Sean Bean play the part. He gets killed in everything he plays. And have you guys ever played Star Trek Online when they were talking about Star Trek Online? Have
That's
you
the
ever
one thing
played
I'm
that?
missing out on because I just don't have time for video games anymore because I've got a real job and stuff. It sucks. I hate it. Because I miss video games. If you could pay somebody full-time wages for a part-time job, life would be so much better for everybody on the planet.
Yeah. Well, you
But-
could just do esports, right?
That's it. You could get all that, esports or whatever. It's kind of, if you can't just, I have time for words for friends, and that's it. I got words for friends. That's it. That's all I got. Once in a while, when I'm on an airplane, I get bejeweled, but that's it. So
And that's a treat, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to.
So I
try
haven't
that
gotten to
either.
the Star Trek Online games at all, and I imagine they're friggin' awesome because it's the best universe on the planet, Star Trek. So I'm missing out on these, and here are these alternate storylines that are coming in.
Yeah.
I'm missing out on all that too. That sounds wonderful.
Now, I haven't played it in a long time, but I was actually one of the very first beta users for Star Trek Online about 8-10 years ago, something like that. So this was when, a long time ago, I was still a casino dealer, and I would play MMO games religiously. So I was going in between MMOs, and I'm like, oh, Star Trek, let's try that. Didn't know anything about Star Trek, didn't know any of that, but I really wanted a new MMO. I probably lasted a week. And it didn't help that I didn't know anything about Star Trek.
I was wondering.
Yeah, because I'm like, what's going on? I don't get, who are these people? I don't get what's going on. Oh, screw this. I'm going to play another MMO.
MMO being.
Oh, and a massively multiplayer online
Video
role-playing
game,
game. Yeah.
Just keeping up with social media can be a challenge.
Oh my God, don't even
Social
get me to
media is its
start.
own video game.
Don't even get me. I can't even do social media anymore. I had to stop doing Facebook. I had to stop doing all of that. I'm not even going to go into that. Okay.
We're not going into that.
A topic
going
for
into
another
that.
day.
So, did you guys really like that pun that they did? Discover Discovery. You should discover Discovery. Do it. Discover Discovery.
Discover Discovery.
I love that. I thought that was so cool. And what did you think? She didn't know if she was going to be the voice of the suit. She was talking about, I'm the voice of the computer, and then they had the voice for the suit, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be the voice of the suit because
Okay.
I'd recorded it, but
I was trying to figure that out because I was getting confused because they had the episode where they had the short trek and the computer had a whole thing. But that wasn't her, right? That was
someone different.
That was somebody
right?
totally
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But I think she recorded
She recorded
it.
the lines for it though, which was
Right.
like, wow.
Yes.
But
And then again, it's, actors.
totally.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was one of those deals where they weren't sure who they were going to use, so they had her record the lines and
Yeah.
someone else.
I mean, once you get the microphone set up and she's recording things, it's pretty easy to just whip, because the way she's working, she's just reading it like it's dialogue replacement.
Right.
So it's like
Yeah.
whip them out, quick, and she's probably so good, you get 1 or 2 takes and you're done.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
how did they explain it? Like, she's watching essentially
Yeah.
the rough cut of the
That's exactly
Right.
what
the
it is.
finished video.
It's a TV and everything. She's watching it, and
Yeah,
it has all
she
her
gets
lines.
she gets the 3 beeps for her cue. You go beep 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 and say your line.
And then say
and the line and they put the lines on the screen for them, which is like, oh, I can't believe that. That's a work on its own. So yeah.
Well, timing I think would be important because she needs to read her lines at the right pace, not too quickly,
And while
not too
she's looking at,
slowly.
you don't want her to like be looking down here and then something is happening up on the screen which she should have been reacting to, or something should have been happening with the voice.
Well, usually they can time it to exactly the little bit that they need.
Okay.
That's usually the way they work with those things.
Okay. Now, do you guys know when they're doing that, do they have the volume, or is there no volume at all? Is there 0 volume? or is
Depends
she
on.
hearing-
I would imagine it depends on where they are in the production, because if they're recording the voice, do they have all the rest of the sound effects in there or not? You got to
Yeah.
wonder what part of the production they're in.
That's
So
true.
she's probably just waiting for the cue for the beep 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 and say the line. So when you hear black alert, it happens at the right time and doesn't overlap somebody else saying a line.
That's a good
So,
point.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And I thought it was so funny that everyone was asking Julianne a question. No one wanted to ask anyone else a question. They all wanted to ask the computer a question.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, computers always give logical answers, right?
Right? Exactly.
Well, I was always surprised because the second I heard her voice, and I kept hearing her voice in the show, I'm just like, I love this computer. I want to know more about her.
Yep.
Nobody's talking about it. I'm trying to listen to her podcast. Nobody's talking about the computer chick. I'm like, who is this woman? I want to know.
Yeah.
So it's great to see her on stage and talking and hanging out with the actors and telling us what it is.
Another great reason to come to Star Trek Convention.
Exactly.
Totally.
We've come a long way since the original series, right?
Oh, yeah.
Working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Computers have a lot more. I wouldn't say necessarily have more personality, but it's a better personality.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that pretty much does it for me. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add about the panel before we finish?
There was one other comment that one of the actors mentioned about kind of like part of the philosophy behind tryouts and acting. The comment was, know where your actor was,
Yes.
know where your actor is going, and listen to the other characters. And
That's
listening.
that's the old school acting technique right there. Yeah.
Really?
Know what you've done, know where you're going, and listen. Because it's all about acting is all about reacting.
Yes.
I've watched a lot of what's the name of the darn show? Actor Studio, Inside the Actor
okay.
Studio. I've watched a lot of that. Probably too much of it because my sister's an actor sometimes. So to hear this kind of stuff, it's fascinating. It's like when you come to the convention, you get a lot of actor stuff from the actors because they're actors. That's what they do. They're not talking about how they build starships. They're talking about being the characters, and it's fascinating. If you find it any interest at all, it's fascinating.
Well, too, it's one of those jobs, being an actor, where you don't realize how much time and effort they put into preparing for that role or that one scene. And I think that's just a good example of that.
Yeah.
And listening, I can completely understand that, because if I was trying to be an actor, I would be so worried about my lines that I would be focused on that I wouldn't be listening, and therefore that would make me a bad actor, because you need to listen. So I really like listening to that. Or speaking of which, I really like listening to
What?
that.
Who? Are you saying something? Oh.
That was just a great way to end that. So that was that panel. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for joining us in the commentary. And we look forward to seeing you on the next panel. See you soon.
so long. Live long and prosper.